Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. I'm back. I missed you. Thanks to everyone who filled in. The midterm primary season continues because it's a Tuesday in election year. We are waiting for results from a couple of states where polls closed in just the last hour. We've got one race in Georgia. That's where two Democrats are facing off in that special election runoff to finish the term of Congressman David Scott, who died in April. In Oklahoma, there's a Republican primary for the governorship. That's going to test Donald Trump's endorsement power. We've seen a lot of tests of his endorsement power. There's another race, though, where Trump is really deeply, truly 110% invested. And that, of course, is the Republican runoff for the Senate nomination in South Carolina. That runoff pits a January 6th election denier, sitting Congressman Ralph Norman, against Darlene Graham, of course, the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham. Now, Trump backed the political novice to finish out her brother's term. It was unclear if she was going to run for re-election until she declared, and then he's all in with her for that. And it's clear that South Carolina is not a swing state. It's a very conservative Republican state. It went for Trump in every presidential election he was on the ballot. But he has decided to invest a lot of time in this race. He has been personally campaigning for Graham, hoping voters will keep her in office permanently.
I think she's going to do phenomenally. I really think it's amazing. You know, she's never done it before, but she knows politics well. But she loves things. She loves our military. She loves things that have to do with greatness for America.
I mean, that's a great endorsement. She loves things that have to do with greatness. How can you not vote for that person? Graham has had some pretty grievous missteps you may have noticed, like answering a debate question about Taiwan by saying, and I quote her here, "I'm not that informed on national security," and then playing off the ensuing controversy by saying that voters were, quote, more concerned with boys and girls sports, which possibly true about Republican primary voters. Never know. But it hasn't been working that well. It's definitely been turning off voters, and it's been leaving the Senate nomination very much up for grabs.
Before the debate, were you going to vote for Darlene Graham?
Yes.
And that the debate changed the calculus. Talk about that.
Yeah, that answer just blew me away. I couldn't believe she didn't have a clue.
Mm-hmm. So because of that, you're considering Ralph Norman now?
Yeah. I'm still on the fence.
The dynasty and the selection of Darlene Graham is not something that I support. We did not pay President Trump and hire President Trump to tell us who to vote for our U.S. Senate seats.
Well, President Trump would beg to differ. Now, it's entirely possible that Graham still pulls off the win tonight. I mean, again, she is the surviving sister of Lindsey Graham. She's got enormous apparatus from Donald Trump and Fox News behind her. But it clearly is not a given, right? This is going to be a close race. We're starting to get results. You can see them down there. Like, no one's running away with this right now. And I think that is because a Trump endorsement in a Republican primary does not have the same cachet it used to have with Republican voters. And I mean used to just a few months ago. Just a few months ago, when the primary season kicked off in April. Remember this? Remember, Trump wanted revenge against a fairly obscure set of Republican politicians. That was the Indiana Senate Republicans who had voted against and shot down his plan for gerrymandering to sort of yoink another Republican seat in that state. And so, out of vengeance, he endorsed their primary challengers in state Senate races. And 6 of his endorsees won. Again, these are small races, right? And they knocked off the incumbents. And it was seen, rightly, I think, as proof that Trump's grip on the Republican Party, and particularly on the Republican primary voter, was as strong as ever. But a lot's happened since April, and it's been a much more mixed record since. So you got Trump endorsing the Freedom Caucus Congressman Andy Ogles, who got upset in the primary just a few weeks ago. Same happened to Florida Congressman Corey Mills, who was also sort of scandal-ridden. Trump's candidate for Wyoming governor lost by 15 points. And then there's election denier Mike Lindell, who still hasn't conceded despite losing the Minnesota governor's nomination by double digits. In fact, as of last Tuesday, Trump-backed candidates had lost 10 times just in this election cycle, and that is as many losses as his candidates racked up in the 2018, 2020, and 2024 primaries combined. Pretty clear signal there in the data, right? His political capital is ebbing. Now, your average swing voter pretty clearly hates the way things are going in this country. We see that in all the polling. You see it in interviews. But the thing about it is, it's never really mattered that much to Donald Trump what the swing voter, what the median voter thinks. It matters to him whether he can control the Republican Party, because the Republican Party and his control over its base and primary voters is the fundamental source of his power. And for a decade, people have predicted that that power was slipping, that his grip on the party was slipping. And it just never really has. And that's where a new poll from Ipsos this week seems really instructive. This number caught my eye. So the top line here is that just 13% of Americans strongly approve of the job Donald Trump is doing. 13%. That's compared to half of Americans who strongly disapprove. But here's a number that I found really interesting, because they're even more grim for Trump when you look at just Republicans, okay? Only 35% of people in the Republican Party say they strongly approve of Trump. That's a real threat to his power. One of the weird things about how Trump has kind of weathered high disapprovals for years is because the people who did approve of him, Republicans, approve so strongly, right? And they would punish people who got crosswise with him in primaries. And now the people whose love for him is still unshakable amount to a third of Republicans, which means all of the trends that we have all seen among normies since Trump was elected in 2024 for the second time, everything we've seen, historic disapproval from Democrats and independents, it's actually now starting to ripple through the Republican Party and the Republican base and Republican establishment. And for more than a decade, Donald Trump has been the poster boy for the old adage, it's better to be lucky than good. He has assumed everything would work out for him because I think he's the luckiest man who ever lived. Everything always has. He's not trying to be good now. He hasn't gotten any better at governing or campaigning, but is also starting to look like he is not maybe as lucky as he used to be. Ali Velshi, host of the 11th Hour, chief data reporter for MS Now, is at the big board with the latest on all the elections happening right now. So let's see where things stand now.
Now, let's look at South Carolina. We've got a third of the vote in right now, and we've just crossed over into more of the vote being day of than advance, which is going to allow us to have a better picture of exactly what's going on statewide. Darlene Graham is running at about 54% to Ralph Norman's 46%. This is around where she's been. She's getting a little bit of an edge as more day of vote comes in. But you'll remember this is a runoff. So in the election, as it happened a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago exactly, Darlene Graham was at 32%, Ralph Norman was at 4.7%. Let's go to Rock Hill. This is where Ralph Norman wins a lot of his votes. This is where he does very well. He was at 49% that night. Darlene Graham was at 27%. Look at how he's doing tonight. He's at 67.6% here, and Darlene Graham is at 32.4%. Obviously, two candidates have dropped out of the race, so they're picking up those other votes. I want to show you another picture in another part of South Carolina. This is Horry County, where Russell Fry actually came in first 2 weeks ago. Darlene Graham had 35%. Mark Sanford and Ralph Norman had less than 10% each. Look at how that's going for Darlene Graham. She's got 73% of the vote here. So they're both picking up vote that's available. She's doing better at it for now, and she's sort of staying with that right now. If you look at it statewide, you can see she's maintaining her 5-6 point lead.
Yeah, so you got 2/3 of the vote out. One of the things I was looking for, although you just made mention, is that whether we'd see a big divergence between early vote and election day vote because of how she has closed the campaign and whether in one direction or another. It doesn't seem like we've got a clear pattern so far.
Doesn't seem to be. At this point, it's matched, and the numbers haven't changed that much. This is the kind of spread we've been seeing, other than the very first dump of votes that looked overwhelmingly favorable to Darlene Graham. It's stayed like this for the last 20% of the vote.
Yeah, we're going to see.
Which means that, we'll have to watch this for a couple hours.
Yeah, definitely.